So to get this whole process started, I take 4 pieces of 1-inch round 18 gauge and put them in the vise in the cutoff saw with a couple of clips that I made to keep them squared up. I weld the ends together. And I make so many of these. I made quite a while ago a permanent stop, a single purpose stop with a couple of dowel pins in it. The front edge is cut so it has a very small purchase area as I move the pieces forward, and they go in these 2 holes. The dowel pins go in those 2. Just use a quick clamp to put it in place. Makes quite a simple setup. And now it's ready for the first trim cut to square all the ends at this end. And now the fun begins. Few hundred more cuts and I'll be done. So after cutting all the pieces, this is all that's left. Not even enough to get one more piece out of. And after I make that first cut, I have this piece here that I always keep in the toolbox, and it is my guide. So I check the first one just after I cut, and then probably about 5 more times during the run, and that assures me that no chips have gotten between the stop and the end of the piece. And to keep the chips out of between the workpiece, the part that I'm cutting off, and the stop, I just keep a brush right here on the head of the saw, and this is a computer hard drive magnet, rare earth. So that brush just lives right there. Last night after dinner, I came back out to the shop and hosed down all of the parts to get rid of the cutting oil and all of the shavings from cutting, and then just laid them out on an old sheet on the shop floor so they would be dry this morning when I came back out. Now this portion has no significant meaning to this video, but I have to get all of these into this feeder, and I thought maybe watching how I do that might excite your mirth. So here we go. didn't go near as bad as it usually does. There's only 2, 4, 6, 8 pieces dropped. I get a okay. So this is the feeder that I showed you putting all the pieces in. It's just like a chicken feeder. Put them in at the top there. There's a slot down at the bottom. So as I take them out, the pieces that are in the container up there on top just keep falling down, and I don't have to chase around for them. They're always right at fingertip. Before I get started, I always put a new belt on my belt sander to make sure that the burrs are removed completely, and you can get a set of plans for this belt sander on my website. So these only have a burr, a number of them have a burr on the bottom portion where the tube's not supported in the saw as it breaks through. And I'm only going to deburr this bottom edge and then place them down in one of the boxes that I've made for this purpose. The top is brought in, and the die removes the burr that would be on the top, and then as they're spread to make the bell shape, this sharp corner is removed. So this is how they're done. And so on, and so on. So what we're going to do in this first operation is take the blanks that we just made and deburred and radius off the top like this. And the die in here is formed obviously to make this shape. So I'm just going to load a bunch, well actually 15 of the pieces. And I always take the first one and dip it in chainsaw bar oil just to lubricate the die. Get it in place and start forming. And if you notice that there's a little bulge right here at the top, and that's because when I set my shut height, I bring this down until it closes. It draws this in as far as it will go because of that radius. It's only going to take so much abuse. And then I go just a slight amount more, and it could be just 2 or 3 thousandths, but it goes past the material's yield. It won't accept coming in anymore, so the only thing it can do is bulge out. And I think that gives a nicer look to the finished product. So, just 500 or 600 more of those, and I'll change the die over to flaring. So the last operation brought us to this point with the top brought in. The next thing we're going to do is flare the, I guess what would be the top, but we're going to do it, it'll be the bottom. And this is a die that I made many years back in the 80s, and I just made it out of mild steel, and you probably can't notice it, but all along this edge it's flared out just like the top of a chisel would be after use. So it was pretty soft. I had to reshape it several times. So I made this one out of S7. I think it was S7 because it was out of a Caterpillar track pin, and I think that's what they make the track pins out of. So I got the shape that I wanted on the top and turned the bottom down to 1 inch round, which is the diameter of the tubing. So I could use this piece. You notice I have this, so it's a guide into the center of the punch press die. And I used just a little bit of chainsaw bar oil and actually bell it to the bottom there, and it doesn't move around. Once I get it in, once it hits a couple of times, it squirts out all the oil, and that's stuck there pretty good. And you can notice that the height of the first die I used is considerably higher than the second die, except when I place this on, this edge here is just about even with the top edge of this die. And by doing that, by making this die at this height, I don't have to change my shut height. You'll notice that when this one is in place, the top is about the same plane. So when I put this one on here, it's considerably higher, and then when it's formed, it comes to the right height because of the same shut height doing the same operation. So let me change these out, get this one bolted in, and I'll show you how that next operation goes. So what I use to facilitate this operation is just a pair of snap ring pliers that I have put a couple of little pieces of wire in, and that allows me to hold the cup, and it's sprung closed, so I'm not having to squeeze it every time. All I have to do is just hit it for a second. That opens it up, and then I can let go of it. It's free in my hand. My hand isn't going to get tired doing these damn things all day long. And once again, the first one, probably about every 5th to 8th one, I dip in chainsaw bar oil and get going. And that's it. That's how this is. Just get a handful of them, not too many, because I drop them if I have too many in there. Once again, 500 or 600 more, and I'll be done. That's the one I've been looking for. The end. So I hope that was enjoyable for you. I know just made me happy as heck to be done. Anyway, so there's how you get 1 inch, 18 gauge, 80 feet of material to turn into from little blanks, pulling the top in, flaring the bottom. So I hope you got something out of that, and there's a couple of things I'd like to mention. The tools that I used, very simple, just a screwdriver with a piece of 1 inch tubing split, opened so I could move the parts around, and then a pair of pliers, spring loaded. So as I used them, I didn't have to use any force. Try to make tools that will help whatever it is that you're doing, and don't rely on the hardware store or some company to make the tools that you need. I was told long ago that the sign of a true craftsman is one who makes his own tools. And the reason behind that is you know what the tool is supposed to do, and you know how it's supposed to feel. So if you can't get something off of the shelf, you know, at your store, Harbor Freight or wherever else, that doesn't do the job and make you feel comfortable doing it, make your own. The last thing is, if you're doing production work and you drop something, don't stop and pick it up. Wait until you're done with the run. I dropped 4 pieces on that first go around when I was bringing these in, and I dropped 3 pieces using these, making the last piece. So when you're completely finished, get up and pick those pieces up and finish the job. If I were to stop 4 times and go find the piece, one of them was behind the punch press, one rolled over under in the corner. So when you drop something, leave it, until the end, and then pick them all up and finish up. And that's about all I have. Thank you very much for watching. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and click the little bell so you get notifications when I put something else up. Thanks.